Uh, First of all, let me start by recognizing Tony Waji, who has just joined us, publisher and editor-in-chief of the Record.ng. Good to see you, Tony.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, let's get talking about this speech, first of all, by Mr. President. I wonder what part of the speech interests you. Let's begin with you, Stephen.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, once again. A normal speech really by an African leader, I must confess. But the part of speech that got me
caught your interest?
Laughing really is the side whereby he was asking for the debt, for Africans' debt to be wiped off. And I was like, you want to ask for debt to be wiped off again when not up to 20 years ago your country's debt was wiped off. And what have you got to show for that forgiveness of debt that has been done after that? We all know that, okay, we have mounting debts. Particularly in his administration, the country has collected more debts than any other PDP administration in the past. He is an APC, he is an opposition, and when they came in under the premise that they were going to make judicious use of the windfall that accrued to us as a result of that debt forgiveness.
Okay.
But what we ended up having is a situation whereby more debt is being piled on the country by his government with little or nothing to show for it. And now you going to the United Nations to go and ask for debt forgiveness. On what grounds? What
on the grounds that we had a pandemic and it affected many nations around the world, even the strongest of economies.
If you are in the UN, wouldn't you have asked, did the pandemic affect only Nigeria and African countries?
I mean, we cannot compare. We cannot compare the continents to developed economies and countries.
I'm coming. I'm going somewhere.
All right.
You see, the pandemic did not only affect Nigeria or African nations. The pandemic affected the whole world.
Yes.
And everybody in the whole world, every nation in the whole world, had to carry their cross and run with it to a certain level. When you come to equity, as people always say, yeah, you come to equity with a clean hands. If you need assistance and you go to these countries for assistance, you have to show something on the table. Right. It's not just to go out and start saying that, look, we need debt forgiveness.
Because the part I do not agree with you is that every country has to carry her cross. I mean, why are we fighting for oneness and one global village?
We have a one global village. But just like you stay in your own house and you have to feed yourself, so also do I have to feed myself. I don't have to carry my children to your house to come and ask you to help me feed the children.
Right. Let's get the initial thoughts of Tony, and then we'll go to Ambrose very shortly. I wonder what your initial thoughts are about Mr. President's speech at the United Nations General Assembly. Do you have reservations about his opening thoughts as well?
Yeah, let's think about the debt cancellation. That's where my issues, debt cancellation. That's why most of African countries go collecting debt from richer nations and they don't pay back. I agree that all countries borrow to fund development. But how you use these funds matters a lot. How you deploy these funds matters a lot. Before you call for debt cancellation, if for instance I'm the creditor nation, or maybe I'm the creditor, for instance, the creditor nation, or the country that gave you that debt, gave you that loan. Before you approach me to say, please, can you cancel so debt? The question I'm going to ask you, how to know how you spend such funds. See, the problem is this: most African leaders or African countries, the way they govern, they collect this fund to fund their lifestyle, individual lifestyles, not to drive development in these countries. Because, for instance, I didn't want to go on to this president's administration, but he cannot run away from it. We've been talking about loans every day. That's what you see the president pushing to the National Assembly for them to approve. The question is, what are you doing with these loans?
Well, the president says infrastructure.
No, it's not about the president saying it. It's about what I see out there. It's not for the president to say. They should show us. We all come from individuals. We have to come from different states. What are you doing? The only thing I can say, I can give him credit for, is the rail lines.
The rail lines.
I can't say that's what going to be receiving, collecting debt. It goes beyond rail lines. It goes. If you talk about roads, we've been having this road when the previous administration was leaving. Of course, like Lagos Ibadan Expressway. Benin Lagos Shagamu Benin Expressway.
Okay.
Have been, they've been working on that road in previous administrations before the present administration came. So you can't tell me it's the brainchild of this government.
All right.
So the issue is, what are you doing with the present loan you have received? Before you go to this one and say, give us that, give you debt cancellation. As what?
All right. So let's get Ambrose into the conversation. Ambrose, live for us from the cold city. I wonder what your initial thoughts are about Mr. President's speech. But let me also ask you this question. Don't the richer nations borrow and steal from the African continent in one way or the other? And the other question, or the other side of the question is that isn't it normal for Mr. President to play the big brother role on behalf of other countries here in Africa?
First of all, it is so sad that 73 years after the United Nations was birthed in 1948, after the Second World War, we are still, going to United Nations to beg. Other countries like the G8 countries, the European countries, and even smaller countries in Asia and some other places are going there with business proposals, are going there to front their agenda, their nationalistic agenda, are going there to see how to do real business with other parts of the world. But African countries have consistently, for 73 years, going cap in hand to the United Nations General Assembly to beg for debt cancellation. I think it is shameless for African countries to keep doing that. And successive leadership in African countries seem not to have an idea of what to do than to borrow for generations to come. Remember the Paris Club in the 80s, where we borrowed from a club. We borrowed from IMF. We borrowed from the World Bank. We went back to borrow from a club of individuals. And then we got that cancellation after making progress economically, and they looked at the books. And from the dogged diplomacy of Chief Olusegun Obasanjo and Okojo-Iweala, we were able to get debt cancellation. We started on a clean slate. Less than 15 years, we are back to 32 trillion naira debt. What kind of a country are we? We are funding, by the way, we are not only borrowing for infrastructure as it will make you believe. Remember the last time we borrowed money and shared money to states actually to pay salaries. We have borrowed to pay outstanding salaries. We have borrowed to pay pensions. We have borrowed to, in the name of COVID-19, to borrow all kinds of money for all sorts of frivolity. And the borrowing is fearful. We are accumulating debt. We are impoverishing generations to come. We are impoverishing. In fact, Nigeria may not get out of this debt until the next 50 to 100 years. And we have no clear-cut roadmap on how to pay back this debt. Because there's one thing about borrowing debt. When you say other nations borrow debt, like the United States and some of these solid economies, when you engage their GDP, when you engage whatever their revenue they are making in their countries against the debt they are borrowing, be it external debt or internal debt, you'll find out that what they are borrowing is far less than what they are making. That is how borrowing works. But when you are borrowing far more than your GDP can sustain, then it's no more borrowing. It is a financial slavery that you are putting your country into and for generations unborn. First of all, what are the critical interventions? Apart from rail, as Tony has mentioned, we don't have any other thing we can sell. Power is still in comatose after so many years. We are not pushing off-grid lines as we're supposed to, off-grid power as we're supposed to be, and renewable energy as we're supposed to be. most of the part of the country is powered by gas emissions, by generator and steams and the rest. What have we done in that respect? Nothing. In terms of skill acquisition and vocational studies, all our technical schools are all dead. What are we doing with them? We are now importing manpower for skilled labor from Togo, from Benin Republic, and from other African countries. While our own youth are now jobless because there's nothing to encourage vocational and technical education anymore. That's supposed to go in. Even the universities cannot fund their patents. The government is not buying patents from them. So funding, when you borrow, you're supposed to use it to fund your technology.
Yes, forgive me. Forgive me, because we have to touch this issue and then begin to round up very quickly. I'm not sure you answered my question of the richer nations stealing from us, or in one way or the other, before now. Isn't it normal for us to get back from them in one way or the other?
No, but don't call it stealing. Don't call it loan.
International diplomacy. In international diplomacy, it is a jungle. It is a diplomatic jungle. It is the survival for the fittest. So if you allow people to come steal from your home, they don't actually come here to steal without active connivance of our own people. Right from the days of slavery, a few people jumped into a boat and disembarked in the coastal areas of Nigeria and Ghana and the other places, and they were able to steal thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of slaves over the years. So with active connivance of our own people, 600 years down the line, we are still having the same thing. So in international diplomacy, the job according to international diplomacy and business, when you leave your flags open,
Ambrose, please,
for you. Nobody loves
you. I hate to break your flow of thoughts, but please stay with us. We'll check in with you very, very briefly as well. Gentlemen, I want both of you to as well respond to that question. Don't the richer countries in time past or even now steal, quote, or borrow from African countries?
If you call it stealing, what did they steal? Is there anything that they took out of any African country, for example, without some form of authorization? You have to balance the scale. We agree that when we talk about maybe the artifacts that they took from Benin and some other places, well, we can look at that. For me, I see that as what you can call spoils of war. Although, yes, the war was not balanced, but that's the way it was, because they were dealing with, at that time, the opposition, and the opposition happened to be the local kings and this thing. But even in slave trade, you find out that our people were the ones that sold our people to them. There was a means of exchange. There was business that was involved. It wasn't just coming to raid and carry or to steal.
So, okay, are you not saying that this is like a payback or something?
Well, I'm not trying to justify.
I'm not trying to justify. I know where to come in.
But let me say this. I mean, for instance, while growing up, sometimes your parents will come to you and say, borrow me this money. And they never get to pay back.
Because they're taking care of you. So that is even excusable. Because they're your parents. And I don't think you need that money at that, because you don't get their move.
So in the same way, I think somehow, I'm just curious to know, maybe it's just a way of
Kelly.
But the other side of the question as well is the fact that, is it not normal for Mr. President to play the role of big brother on behalf of other nations?
And that was why when I started my speech, I told you it's a typical speech of African leaders who always go around to beg.
Everything.
To beg for everything.
To beg or to request?
To beg. That is what he was doing.
My president is not begging. My president is requesting. Mr. President was not there to beg. He was there to request.
Kelly, calm down. If he was there to request, he would have opened up a business line. He will have opened up a business proposal. He will have dropped a business.
Because I understand there were other bilateral meetings.
Yes,
but the General Assembly.
Those ones are normal.
Mr. President met with the Queen of Netherlands. Geoffrey Yama met with someone from Venezuela, Prime Minister of Venezuela, and all of that.
Those ones are what you call aside business. But the main business was the president. Here we have the president of Nigeria to address the nation. So what he needed to do, he would have told, we are ready for business in spite of the security challenges. If he says that, I'm sure a lot of people will take him on aside and say, sir, you said you are ready for business.
Okay.
How do I do it?
Yes.
Rather than going to ask for it.
The issue is this.
All right.
For me, this is the same country. About a couple of days back, the president sent a list to the National Assembly, request to the National Assembly for loan and football again. From it's like it happens like every 4 weeks. You have such requests.
Before this last one, it was about 2 months ago.
Being pushed forward to the National Assembly. You are requesting for more. You are begging for debt to come for forgiveness. This is the same country, just as Andrew said. When President Olusegun Obasanjo was in power, this debt, was totally cleared.
Cleared up, wiped off.
And that's why when Goodluck Jonathan came, he wanted Okonjo-Iweala to continue because she facilitated it. And then we're back to square one. The issue is who will pay for this debt. It tells you that we don't even have payment structures, repayment structures. Because if you have repayment structures, you may call for loan debt cancellation. Nigeria is rich enough to pay such. You don't understand. There are some countries in Africa that will go to the United Nations to request for loan cancellation or debt cancellation.
So you're not saying Nigeria is rich enough?
The question is, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we manufacturing? What are we producing in Nigeria? Studying all the factors and all, you can't say this is what Nigerians are known for. What Nigeria is known for. We do not produce anything. So we go cap in hand, beg for loan. Then tomorrow we go there to beg for forgiveness. It doesn't work that way. Let's get serious for once in this country. What I expect, apart from building railway and all that, is to encourage production, ramp up production. All these industries that are run to neighboring, all these fringes of Nigeria, all these neighboring countries, encourage them to come back here and start afresh.
That's what the president, this administration is doing. Trying to bring the rail line to Niger.
Nigerians are unemployed, no factories. Any factories here, maybe all these Asian countries.
I'm not trying to hold brief for this administration.
I understand, but we need to get serious in Nigeria. We need to get serious. Before you say cancel them, what are you doing with the ones you have? This is the same country where you bring in such money into the country, they share it among themselves. And the election is fast approaching. They are beginning to stockpile funds again for election. We have to be careful. When we collect such money, how do we monitor such?
Who monitors the execution in the first instance?
We are not serious.
Okay, so that's the very interesting
That is the truth.
question.
Because the moment the structural is approved, we don't know when it comes in. We don't know how it's deployed. We don't know who's spending it. The next thing you see, a governor is having an estate, and then you see him come to take over. Where did they get such funds from?
All right.